On pages 17 and 18 of our Unit 1 notes, we are learning how to transform equations. Often this is called solving literal equations. If you're looking for more resources, that's what you could Google, literal equations. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to locate the variable that we're trying to solve for, in this case, a. And then we are going to follow the rules for solving equations that we are already very comfortable with. Now, for some students, this feels really weird because we're not dealing with a lot of numbers that we can actually simplify numerical expressions. So sometimes the flowchart is helpful. So we're going to trace what's happening to A using our order of operations. What's happening to A? First, I'm multiplying A by 2, and now I have 2A. And then finally, I'm adding B. That gives me 2A plus B. I hit the equal sign, so I'm done building onto my flowchart. 2A plus B equals C. And now I'm going to retrace my steps, performing inverse operations in the opposite order. So instead of adding B, I'm going to subtract B, giving me C minus B. And then instead of multiplying by 2, I'm going to divide by 2. That gives me C minus B, dividing the whole thing by 2, not just the B. Translating that into an algebraic process, I'm going to first subtract B from both sides of my equation. That gives me 2A equals C minus B. And then I divide both sides by 2, giving me A equals C minus B divided by 2. Second example, I'm tracing what's happening to M. So I'm first multiplying M by N. That gives me Mn, that's a multiply. And then I'm dividing by P. Mn divided by P. That equals Rs squared. Now I'm done. I hit the equal sign, so I'm going to just retrace my steps, performing my operations in the opposite order, and those operations need to be the inverse operation. So instead of dividing by P, I'm multiplying by P. That gives me Prs squared, which I could write in any order. I could write Rs squared P. And then instead of multiplying by N, I'm going to divide by N. That gives me Prs squared divided by N. Algebraically, I just need to multiply both sides by P, which gives me Mn equals Prs squared, which of course could also be Rs squared P. And then I'm just going to divide by N because I'm solving for M. M times N divided by N gives me my final answer. M equals Prs squared divided by N. Let's go through a few more examples without the flowchart. I still think it's really helpful to highlight the variable that I'm solving for. In this case, R. So I am multiplying R by Ps squared, and then I'm dividing by T. Going in the opposite order, my first inverse operation is to undo that division, so I multiply by T. That gives me Prs squared equals UVT. I could have written TUV. And now I'm trying to isolate R. R is being multiplied by Ps squared, so I'm just going to divide by Ps squared. Divide both sides. That gives me, I'm getting rid of the P, I'm getting rid of the S squared. That gives me R equals UVT divided by Ps squared. So again, I was multiplying and then dividing. Now I am going to multiply and then divide. For this one, we get a more exciting inverse operation. We are isolating S. What's happening to S? First I square it, then I multiply by PR, then I divide by T. So let's multiply by T. That gives me Prs squared equals UVT. Now I need to divide by PR. That gives me S squared equals UVT divided by PR. My final inverse operation is to undo that squaring. So I'm going to square root both sides. S equals the square root of UVT, which is actually nicer to write as TUV, alphabetical order, divided by PR. Final equation, same expression, but now I am isolating T. When T is in the denominator, I need to multiply both sides of the equation by the variable in order to solve for it. So now I have p times r times s squared equals uvt. Now it's a one-step equation, just dividing by uv to isolate t. That tells me that t equals p times r times s squared divided by uv.